Everybody having a good conference so far? Beautiful room. My name is Pete Laurie. I'm a partner with Enterprise Iron. Been in the retirement services industry, both record keeping operations and now the last 3.5 years as a consultant for about 25 years. Before I introduce the panel, we want to have a little bit of an interactive discussion. So if you take out your supercomputer from your pocket and log into Slido.com, we have some poll questions that'll offer some anonymity to the audience, and we'll generate some discussion off of that. So it's Slido.com, and the event code is EISpark on that. And I'd like to introduce the first panelist, Jeff Evers.
Hi, my name is Jeff. I have worked for Enterprise Iron for about 12 years. I've been in the industry for over 26. I started and got my feet wet at Milliman. I worked for them for 16 years, worked for a small TPA for several years, and now Enterprise Iron.
Hi, I am Lauren Lenice. I have been with Enterprise Iron as a principal consultant since 2009. I work mostly on platform conversions, plan reporting, and general record-keeping operations.
Hi, I'm Kevin Kilgore. I've been with Enterprise Iron since 2013. I've had, in my past, 3 major platform conversions from one platform to another. And over that time, a lot of different conversion in and conversion out activities.
And my name is Tim Scott. I've been with Enterprise Iron about 3.5 years now. Just celebrated, I guess, my 35th year in the retirement record-keeping business, dealing with large institutional record keepers. And my role here today is to facilitate the interactive portion of the session of our time together that Pete talked about. So what we're going to do, if you'll log into Slido.com, and the event code is EISpark, on your phone, your tablet, your laptop, whatever you have, then we're going to walk you through a series of poll questions, just kind of polling the audience, get your take on some things, and then we'll bounce those questions, those results off of our panel. And then we're going to also give you the opportunity to ask us some questions, so you'll be able to kind of direct where we go with the rest of the session. So you definitely want to be a part of that. So, we've tried doing pre-conference surveys in the past, and we got on average about 3.7 responses. And it's kind of hard to have a really good discussion when you're dealing with 3 or 4 responses back from folks. So we thought we'd try some new technology. Hopefully this will encourage some discussion and help us get some better dialogue going. So please log in to Slido.com and event code EISpark. And with that, I'll turn it back to Pete.
So we know everyone's busy. We thank you guys for your attention. Afternoon, maybe a little coffee is needed. The point of this is not to present slides, but everyone in the audience has multiple challenges that they're managing to, whether it's increasing client satisfaction, taking costs out of the business, it's improving participant or sponsor experience. All of that comes inherent with risks in the business. So when we were talking about risks, we figured we'd talk about some things that can be a say hello to a new client, right? Or a client communication thing. And so when we're talking about either a client transition, converting a new client into your platform, or converting your platform over, we wanted to focus this discussion, as Tim said, we'd start off with some interactive polling questions, which Tim will take us through.
Okay. So our first question today, so if you're on your phone, you should have seen the poll question pop up on your phone, okay? Has your company ingested a large block of business or moved to a modernized platform in the past 5 years, possibly due to acquisition or a merger? So just take a minute and respond to that. Give us a yes, no, or the other options available to you there. Okay, we've got 13 responses so far. Anybody else want to join in? 14, there we go. Okay, so you can go ahead and continue responding. We'll go ahead and get some input from the panel here. Jeff, you've been to a number of large-scale conversions. So talk a little bit about your experience in doing these kind of works. What are some of the pitfalls that folks need to be on the lookout for, or some things that you would advise that, maybe some things that you've tripped over in the past or seen clients do that?
Okay. I have been involved in 5 major platform conversions over the course of my career. Some from small systems, some from large systems. The size of the system doesn't really matter. What I've seen in my experience with the platform conversion is a few things. One of the things that you see is the timing of it. A company's just invested in a new platform or a new block of business, and they want to get that up and running as soon as possible. So they put timing above all else. So that's one of the pitfalls of it, is what is your time frame? Is it too soon? Is it too long? You got to have the right time frame. Another thing that I've seen or witnessed with some of the platform conversions is the lack of controls. They don't define the controls for the process through the conversion and on into operations post-conversion. And I've seen the big one, and I think everybody in the industry struggles with this, is the data. You get data for a new block of business, you get data from a prior record keeper or from a platform, moving data from one platform to another. You have issues with the data mapping and whatever. So those are the 3 things that I think that really impact a conversion of any kind. And the one thing that, to me, that can mitigate this whole thing is communications, and that's the good part of this. If you have a good communications plan, even if you have bumps along the way, you're keeping your vendors, your clients, and your internal staff apprised of everything that's going on, you can mitigate some of the pitfalls just by keeping people informed.
Okay. So I noticed here from looking at the poll results that 65% of you said yes, that you have ingested a large block of business recently. And another 12 to 18% have said that you're planning one for the future. So I'd be interested to hear just anything that you'd like to share with us about Jeff's comments in terms of what you have seen or what you're planning for as you look forward to one of these large migrations. Anybody would like to share anything from the audience? Come on. This is the interactive part of this. You guys can do this. All right, we'll move on. Go ahead.
Communication piece is absolutely critical to that, because there will be bumps, there will be bruises. You can guarantee it's going to happen, whether you're, again, changing platforms or whether you're bringing on that large block of business. I think you also do have to build into those time frames, time to handle those communications and things like that, and make some assumptions that the data is going to be bad no matter what the other side is telling you. Oh yeah, our data's great. No, it's not. You have no term dates for the past 10 years. You have that. So that I would definitely second those things. The communication between parties is absolutely critical, and staying on top of that.
Sounds like the voice of experience there. Okay, anybody else like to have anything to share? All right, why don't we move on to the next question? This is, and here we're really talking about onboarding a plan, okay? So on average, how long does the plan conversion take from start to finish? And the way we've defined start to finish is from the time the plan is sold to the time the first payroll hits your system, okay? Now, I know that a lot of times that's a contingency based on the prior record keeper, or it's, your client getting you the information and so forth. So let's set that aside right now. We're just really talking about the process. You've got the data, you've sold the plan, and let's assume for just a minute, I know it's the dangerous assumption, but let's assume for just a minute you're not subject to those other delays. We're really trying to get at your process here. So, okay. So the vast majority of our respondents have said months to onboard a plan. So, Lauren, talk a little bit about what you've seen and some of the challenges that can cause that to be the case.
My answer probably falls in line with what's written here. It's typically months. It could be shorter, but the two really critical pieces that slow it down are the plan data, which we've talked about a couple of times, it's been mentioned, and the transmittal of that data and getting it complete and clean and correct. And then also the plan rules and the documentation of the plan rules, and making sure that those are implemented into the systems correctly and accurately. Those are the two things that I think really have an impact on how quickly a plan can get up and running.
Okay. Anybody from the audience have anything you want to share about this? And we're not wanting you to give away any state secrets or anything like that, but anybody comfortable talking about this process? Okay. All right, let's move on to question number 3. And we may have given away a little bit of our leaning here with the way we worded this question, but and just some of the previous answers you've already heard. But is the quality of data and the interrogation of data your number one challenge during a conversion? And if it's not, there's a text box there that you can actually say no, but here's my number one challenge. So let's see how we would respond to that. Okay. Okay, so we actually had someone answer no to that question. So if you answered no, I'd be interested to hear. Let's see here if I can get my technology to work here. Okay. So we had the one, lack of timely client responses, right? So obviously that's I think something that we all would struggle with. Kevin, talk a little bit about this data issue from your perspective.
So in, the changing role between the sponsor and the record keeper, with the record keeper taking on more of the fiduciary responsibility around eligibility calculations and such. I echo what my comrades here are saying, that the rules and how you interrogate the data that comes in to make sure that the information that you're receiving is valid based on the rules, as well as setting up the conditions to take on some of that fiduciary responsibility. I know a lot of record keeping shops have taken on quite a bit more than what they've used to, including tracking employment history and participation service. So the quality of the data and your ability to run rules against it up front and make sure that you have all those rules collected is becoming more and more critical, especially with the liability transfer.
Okay. Any comments from the audience? Anybody want to comment on that?
I have a couple questions. If anybody from the audience is brave enough to speak up, I would like to know. We're sitting here talking about timeliness for the timeliness or the time it takes to convert, and obviously, we've got data issues. What kind of data issues, for those of you that have been involved in platform conversions or that have been involved in the plan conversions, which I think is the focus of the last two questions, what kind of data issues do you see? I mean, Kevin kind of summed up a little bit, but is there anybody out there brave enough to say, hey, this is what we're seeing? What kind of data issues? Is there anybody in here that's done? No, I'm going off script, bear with me. But is there anybody in here that's done any of these onboarding of new clients that really hasn't had data issues? Or is it pretty much a centralized thing? We all have data issues when we onboard new clients. Anybody that hasn't? I'm going to take silence as acceptance, and then that goes back to whoever answered this question here, which I've seen before too. You've got data issues. You go to the client, or you go to the prior TPA, and they don't respond, and then you're really stuck. And so, okay.
Yeah, you were talking about the forcing of data or lack of data and so forth. It reminds me of in a prior life, I was dealing with a customer, or we had a customer who we were running some analytics on their data and just looking at birth dates. And we noticed the graph kind of went like this, right? And there was this one spike. And we got to digging into it, and we found out that, well, when we converted this plan, or this group of plans, we didn't have good birth date information. And so we just plugged in a date, 1/1/1970 or something like that. Well, that has tremendous ramifications on virtually everything that we do, right? In terms of the whole process, and nobody ever caught it. So they just converted the plan, brought it on, and they're running alongside with it. So those types of things are very critical. So being able to find that in your conversion process is pretty important. Anybody else? Any other comments about this? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I just think it's too, some people that you deal with in the conversion may not have the knowledge, and so they're doing maybe a separate piece of it, and it goes kind of back to that date of birth thing. Oh, well, this is what I assumed, so this is what I did. Well, why didn't you ask? Like, questions are good.
Yep.
And so that's something I've seen too, where people have that lack of knowledge and aren't able to really solidify the stuff that you actually do.
Which I think goes back to the communication issue that we talked about before. Yes, that's right. Very good. Brian, did you?
Yeah, I was going to say that the decision-making at time of conversion, because to your example, they didn't have certain data, so they made a decision to do a plug, right?
Yep.
Well, there's other data that may not be needed at the time of conversion, like compliance stuff, that has a downstream impact, and you end up chasing that a year after the conversion when compliance testing rolls around. So, some providers may not be capturing or gathering all that census information, or they're not asking for it as follow-up, but you don't necessarily need it at the time of conversion because it doesn't impact the conversion.
Right.
But it has a downstream impact.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember when a lot of us didn't think we'd still be in this industry and when 12/31/99 rolled around, so we just kind of plugged some dates there. So. Okay, moving on. Question number 4. So we're going to shift a little bit here. We'll talk a little bit about tools. So what kind of tools does your company use for platform or plan conversions? And we've got several options for you there. Internally developed tools, that can be COBOL programs or whatever, spreadsheets and databases, data conversion tools provided by the vendor, third-party tools provided, third-party provided data conversion tools, a combination of vendor internal tools or different tools for platform versus plan conversion. So maybe there's one answer for a platform conversion versus another for just ongoing new business. Give you a few minutes to respond to that. Some interesting responses coming in. Yeah, you guys can't see them yet. I can see them, but you can't see them.
I can see
Tim,
the
go ahead
number
and
moving.
Pop it up there for us. And you can continue to respond. Okay, so Lauren, the two most common answers are internally developed tools or different tools for a platform versus a plan conversion. So talk a little bit about your experience there, and I think I know what you were going to say anyway, so.
My experience would really be all of the above. There might need an option for that.
Yeah, that was too easy. We didn't really want that option.
Especially with platform conversions, a lot of times you're dealing with internal tools, legacy applications that are definitely not on the same timeline for conversion as maybe a core record keeping system. So you wind up working with a mixture of everything for really an infinite amount of time. So with plan conversions, sometimes it's a little different, but sometimes you might have the participant-facing or the plan sponsor-facing tools that are more internal and then, the vendor tools for the core record keeping work. But I think it can be really all of the above.
Right. Thoughts from the audience? Anything that you see or thoughts of, some of the tools that maybe, aside from things that you've just kind of cobbled together on your own, which I know everybody does that, any good tools out there that anyone has used?
And Tim, I want to enhance that question a little bit. What tools have you used and how have you used those tools? What have you used them for, whether it was a platform conversion or whether it was a plan conversion? I'll give you an example. When I was doing plan conversions, this was a long time ago, we used internal tools, and almost all the internal tools that I used were Excel, right? Or I used a program. When you get a file that's this was back in the 90s and early 2000s. You get a file that's a few gigs. Back then, they didn't have the availability of tools to manage that kind of data was limited. So I used a text-based editor to manage the files I would get, called vEdit, and in Excel. And between that and Excel, I was able to do the plan conversions when I onboarded new clients. So other things like that. And what tools did you have and what did you use them for? Any testing tools, other things?
Okay. Well, why don't we move on to question number 5? This is our last question. So as you're going through a conversion, what is most important to your company? Is it timing, getting the new business on the platform as soon as possible? Is it accuracy, getting it done right, even if it takes longer than planned? Or is it efficiency, getting it done with the least cost to the company? What's your company focused on as you're going through a migration?
You get to say which part of your company is focused?
Well, I think it goes back to, and we're going to talk a little bit about setting the tone from the top. But I think the tone that gets set from the top is going to kind of drive the answer to this. So actually, that's the very next topic is going to be setting the tone from the top. Okay. So the overwhelming, I'm happy to see this, by the way. The overwhelming majority of you said get it right, even if it takes longer than planned. So, Jeff, I know you got a strong opinion here.
I do.
So why don't you share some of your thoughts on this?
I mean, I agree with...
somebody changed. All right. Somebody changed their answer from timing to accuracy. You felt peer pressure. All right.
Like I said earlier, I've been involved in 5 platform conversions, and my experience is a little bit different. I have seen everybody wants accuracy. Every company I've ever worked with that does a platform conversion or that does onboarding wants accuracy. And then what happens is you get towards the end where they want to either justify the cost or we've promised something to a client we have to deliver, and the timing of it now becomes important towards the end, so you're shuffling to get things done, and some of the accuracy may go away. And I agree with everybody here, accuracy is the most important thing, and the reason why is if you mess it up, you've got your reputation at stake, and to me, there's no greater cost to a company than the reputational risk or the hit that you're going to take if you mess something up. And so accuracy is number one. I think sometimes it's sacrificed for timing when you get towards the end of the time period.
I was pleased even of the one that didn't answer accuracy originally. Nobody answered efficiency or getting it done with the lowest cost. So I was pleased to see that. At least everybody's committed to doing what it takes to get it done well. So any thoughts from the audience as you guys have gone through this? Anything to share? Obviously, we talked about setting the tone from the top, right? And that's going to be our next topic. But any thoughts there about to share, to add to that? Yes, sir.
I'm more of a question, maybe for the panel, that we go back to the tools.
Yeah.
The Excel sheets and all of that. What have you guys seen in terms of the infusion of robotics to do a lot of the tool work, if you will, for conversions?
Kevin, you want to take that one?
From a conversion perspective, there's, any number of ETL tools that have been used in the past. Certainly, where things get more complex and that you need to stream the data between, two instances of a record-keeping system or the databases, you may have to use SQL or some form of that. It all depends on what the environment requires for that. But I've seen a lot of different tools that have been used for conversion. I think there's some new tool sets that are out that really make it easier. Certainly on the point-in-time data, not just the assets themselves. So when you're moving the point-in-time balances and participant information to get it over to the new platform, but a lot of times you're still dealing with the transactions and the payroll information that you also have to take care of. So similar streamlined solutions that are taking both into account that allow you to sort of join the rules together for the particular plan so that you're not just doing the asset cleanup and the data cleanup with a rule-style engine, I will say. You can also use that then to start taking in payrolls and doing the testing for that. So the more and more you can use, singular tools instead of multiple tools to take care of this, and some shops don't necessarily have the IT bandwidth to do this, but the more that you can focus on that and get that singular tool to do everything or most everything from a conversion and takeover perspective, the better off you're going to be.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we're going to invite Pete to come back up, and we're going to talk a little bit about lessons learned. But before we do, on your phone or on the app, there's a section there for audience Q&A or for asking questions. So if you just click on that portion of the screen, you can ask any question. I'll be polling. I'll be watching the questions come in back here, and as we get a good number of questions, and I'll come back up and we'll put the questions up on the screen and put them to our panel here and let you guys have a dialogue around that.
Thanks, Tim. I'm going to take a little page out of Jeff's book and go way off script, but in an unnamed former employer, I used to run the business process reengineering. So we were on a call. There were some problems with their survivor process, and it got so heated there was two EVPs, one from ops, one from client services, screaming at each other on the phone. And we're, managers, directors, some MDs on the phone. And so we got called in to do a redesign. So 3-4 months later, we got a bunch of smart people in the room, some subject matter experts, reduced the SLAs, improved the experience. Really proud of ourselves. The firm hired McKinsey to come in and do a review of successful projects and kind of how are we going to do this going forward in the future. And so when we were presenting our best work for them and they said, hey, this is really good work, I could see the metrics, how you move the needle. And they said, what about the people? And it hit me there that we totally forgot about all of the folks that were actually processing the Benny cases and their input. And so one of my big lessons learned is when you're going through a change, whether it be a platform or bringing on a new book of business, you can't forget about the people. So with that in mind, I'd like to ask Kevin if he has any thoughts about kind of setting that tone at the top and remembering that the people are going through change as well as the business and companies.
Well, the change at the people level, but also the platform. I mean, a lot of times when you're moving from one platform to another, you have to send that positive message that every day that this is going to be a positive change for the organization. Yes, there's going to be bumps in the road, but you have to get the acceptance from the people that are going to have to do this work. Because if you're not forcing that communication on a regular basis, I've just seen where it breaks down and people just badmouth the system that they're going to and don't invest themselves in trying to transform one of the operations, the systems, and the work they're doing to make it more accurate and move the needles like Pete was talking about.
Any thoughts from the audience about the people change component?
Pete, I have a question for you, because I think that's really key. At least one thing I've observed is the change piece seems to lag the project. And one of the things that, at least I'm trying to influence is how do we start thinking about change when we start thinking about the project, right? So there's an intentional strategy around change communication and change management. So just curious to your thoughts around when is the right time to start with the change piece, right? Because what I tend to see is, so we sit in a room, we design what we need to design, we're thought through, we're going through the change curve. We put that into actuality and then we're like, oh, yeah, the people, let's now communicate to them and force adoption, which to me is kind of the wrong connotation. So just curious to your thoughts around timing of those parallel paths.
Yeah, well, my most successful change efforts are really going to the floors where the work actually happens and sitting with folks and getting their ideas and pushing their ideas. And when somebody that's maybe not a manager or somebody that at a junior level sees their idea come into fruition, then they buy into it, their change, and their colleagues do. And most of the work that we've done with clients or when in former careers, if you can get the people that actually do the work, whether it's the phone center, whether it's operations, whether it's the transition teams, to be involved from day one and solicit their thoughts and ideas when they see that it's possible to get an idea implemented, that's the time that you bring a lot of the change. And interested if the panel has any additional thoughts.
Yeah, I would say that from a communication standpoint, once you've made a decision to make a change that is significant in the environment, and you have upper management's backing on that, you want to start the communication almost as soon as you've made that decision, so that it's not a secret to them. They don't hear about it through a rumor mill. They can pick up on it right away and on a regular basis communicate back out to them. This change is coming. This is where it is. This is how long before we would start training or getting the operations staff or whoever else is impacted by it involved in the process.
One thing I did forget to mention, we're moving to the next and last slide, and we're talking about some of the technical challenges. If anyone wants a copy of any of these slides, we have some of our methodology in here. As a takeaway, please stop by our booth afterwards, and we'll be happy to do that, and we can figure out how to get you a PDF as well. I just wanted to mention that. So in terms of technical change, Jeff, have you seen things that have worked successfully and why? And have you seen things gone sideways and kind of what was the cause?
Well, I've seen both. I mean, for all of us that have been on platform conversion, we've seen things go sideways. And I'm just going to echo what Kevin says. When something goes sideways, which it always does, and it doesn't really matter whether you're doing a small platform conversion or a large one, something is going to be unplanned that happens. You know, maybe you have some kind of an outage and something goes down. That can happen. And I actually have seen that happen before, where you have an outage and something breaks, the server goes down, and all of a sudden you're dead in your tracks. And so where I would go with this is there's two pieces to it. One is what Kevin just said, and I echo that. I think Lena over there said it as well, and that is you have to have a communication plan from start to finish. So like Kevin said, you make a decision, communication plan, and as you get closer and closer, you're going to have more and more communications to keep people informed. Because the more people know, even if it's overkill, the more people know, the more comfortable they are. And the second thing is the project plan. So that manages or micromanages everything. And another example of that, and this isn't really the technology piece, it's a piece of the communication, but there's at least three of us in this room that are going to be going through a conversion this coming weekend. So a block of plans, 300 and some odd plans are going to get converted from one platform to another this week. And we have this whole thing blocked out to the second. I mean, if you look at our timeline, going through, blocking out everything. So again, you have to have a project plan that manages the whole thing and takes into account all the details, has the contingency plans when something goes wrong, and then a communication plan to back that up when something doesn't go right or when something does go wrong.
Okay, so we have some questions from the audience that have been submitted. If you take a look at your phone, you'll see, or at the screen, but if you look at your phone, you'll see there are 4 questions that have been submitted. Beside each of the questions, you can give it a thumbs up, you can like it, upvote, and if you upvote the questions, then we'll know which ones we want to talk about first. So take a few minutes to look at the questions and vote for those that you would like to see us touch on first. Okay, I'm seeing a definite pattern of interest here. So why don't we start with the first question: how are record keepers handling history? Sorry, I can't read my own screen here. Do the record keepers offer the conversion of history as an optional service as opposed to strict point-in-time conversion? And if so, fee. So I'll throw that out to whoever.
I'll just start off based on my experience. I've converted a lot of plans, and I'm going to take this to mean a plan conversion versus a platform, because your history is going to go along with your plans, right? Your employee census and stuff like this. And when I converted the plans, when I was an implementation manager, I did it for about 12 years. When I was an implementation manager, I wanted everything. And I converted everything I could get my hands on in, because I would rather have the history up front than not have it. And every record keeper that I've worked with does the same thing. They want the history. Give it to me up front. I'll sort it out. You can give me the data. And so that's how I approach the history. So my answer would be, as a record keeper, I want your history.
What are thoughts from the audience? What do you guys do? What do you see? And do you agree with Jeff? You want it? Is it a issue of storage, or what are your thoughts?
Can we define history? What do you mean by history? Are you talking about transactional history? Are you talking about financial history? Are you talking about service history? What are you actually talking about?
That's a great point, and wasn't clear in the question. I'm assuming from the question that we're talking about the financial history of because certain things like service history you'd almost have to convert if you're doing a full service of the plan. So I'm assuming the question was about financial history. I don't know if whoever submitted it, if you'd like to clarify, that's fine.
Financial history, you're run out of, there's not enough room.
Oh,
Okay,
well, that's good to know.
all right. So let's,
Truncated my history when I tried to. It's like a tweet, there's only so many characters.
yeah. 280 characters, that's right.
But I think you're also thinking
So we're talking about financial
transactional.
history,
Everything.
which is
I want
obviously, depending on how old the plan is, right? It can be years and years of financial detail. And so then the question is, so show of hands, how many folks actually typically convert all of the history when you're bringing on a new plan?
Am I the only one that actually converts all the history I can get my hands on?
So a lot of that has to do with, when we move to more fiduciary responsibilities, who's responsible for that history? Who's responsible for the accuracy of that history? Who's responsible for managing it? Once you transfer, if you're doing a plan conversion from one place to another. So there are ramifications for doing that. So that, I think some of the larger plans, you wouldn't see that being done as much.
And that is, if you're going to convert a plan that's got,
It all depends on what your contract with the sponsor is going to be, whether you do that or not.
Right. So I think it's a problem of the new record keeper wanting, I think it's a problem of being able to obtain that history from the previous record keeper, right? To get that information.
And whether you would want to take the risk of it not being accurate.
Yeah, and I know there's things that we ask for from, I've been doing some process improvement work with our business department, and there's times to go, record keepers will give us that, we can't do that. Well, have we asked, yes, we'll ask, and it just says that, no, we want to do sensitive history to that long ago.
Right, okay. All right, so we're going to take that question away, and then we're going to, the next most commonly asked or upvoted question: how do you suggest handling old, complicated customizations? Kevin, you're an old, complicated customization guy, so.
Well, it all depends on what the environment is and what technologies are available. I mean, certainly if you're dealing with, if you're not sitting in a situation where you have APIs that are available to you to upscale the technology and to use it more in a inline capability with your record keeping system, it becomes difficult. Transitioning that usually means you're going to have to rewrite it in whatever technology you have available to you. So there are certain tool sets that are out there that will, depending on what it's for, whether it's eligibility, whether it's service tracking, whether it's something that you need to maintain and have available for your web, it gets different definitions of what you would need to do from a tool perspective and how that gets converted over.
Thoughts from the audience? How do you guys handle old, complicated customizations?
And before you answer, I have one question that kind of feeds off of what Kevin says. But we're talking customization with regards to an old plan document that's, one of those things that was drafted by a lawyer. It's 100, 200 pages long, and it has all these special provisions in it. We're talking web customization, so we can offer features on the web. Just a little clarification. Both?
Yeah, could be any of the above. Any thoughts? Yes, sir.
Yeah, some of those old customizations may have been population driven. So if you don't have that population anymore within the plan, you can remove that old customization as a result of that. Or there could have been old grandfathered stuff that may not be needed anymore on a go-forward basis. Or just try to talk the client out of it. And because most of the old stuff, it's not beneficial to the current base of participants. It's old stuff that was written in there that were for old population groups. So talk to the client, talk to the plan sponsor to see if they're changing their plan document as a result of the transition. Try to talk to them and get some of those old pieces out of the plan.
And I agree with that completely. When I used to have a block of clients that I managed and I consulted on, and that was one of the first things I did when I got a new client. I went through the plan document, and I would review it with the client and do exactly what he said. Okay, here's this, here's the impact to your cost. What can we do to streamline this to make it more efficient for your participants, to make it cost effective for you, and to make it beneficial for us? Because the more streamlined it is, you're going to reduce your risk of errors, you're going to be able to run the plan cheaper. And I was always a big proponent of going out and talking to clients and saying, let's see what we can do to make changes. And most of my clients were pretty willing to accept the changes that were recommended.
Okay, we're actually up against our time limit here. Let me do two things very quickly. Number one is just as we, we're excited to have a partner that we're working with. We're a sales marketing partner for a firm that has some tools that you might want to take a look at. If you want to come by, we can give you a demo of those tools. We can talk with you a little bit about those tools and how they can help you solve some of these issues. So feel free to stop by our booth. We'd love to see you. Also, if you'd just like to get, as Pete mentioned, a copy of the slides from today, we'd be happy to share those with you as well. And then finally, you're in the phone, you're in the Slido.com app, and we would ask you to go out and give us a session survey. And so just tell us how give us some feedback on the session. Was it meaningful for you? Helpful for you? Was it good information? Bad information? You hated the MC? Whatever comments you'd like to make. The survey will be alive through the end of the conference. So you don't have to do it right now, but it'll only take you a few minutes to do it if you want to do it right now. But the survey will be live through the end of the conference. So feel free to come back in and do that. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for your input. We felt like that we wanted to get something where we could get some input from the audience, but we knew it had to be anonymous. So hopefully the new technology hasn't been too kludgy and you guys have appreciated being able to use that. Thank you for your time.